After what felt like forever, the UFC is finally back. It was only a week off. And we're back right here in Newark, New Jersey, not far, hour and a half from here, at the Rock Prudential Center. It's Islam versus Dustin. Let's get into it. First fight of the night, we got Randy Rude Boy Brown taking on Elijah Zaleski dos Santos. Randy Brown, he's on a solid run right now. He's won 6 of his last 7, and the only loss in that span was to Jack Della Maddalena. Zaleski dos Santos, on the other hand, he's really not that active. He's only had 3 fights in the last 3 years. He is unbeaten in those 3 fights. It started when he beat Benoit Saint Denis in Benoit's UFC debut back in 2021. Then he went to split decision with Abubakar Nurmagomedov, and he fought to a draw with Fakhretdinov in his last fight. So, I'm going to take the over 1.5 in this. It's minus 310. Obviously, going to parlay it with something. But, Randy Brown, 3 of his last 5 have hit the over 1.5, and 11 of his 17 UFC fights have hit the over 1.5. Zaleski dos Santos, on the other hand, his last 6 hit the over 1.5, and 11 of his 14 UFC fights have hit the over 1.5. If you guys are looking for anything else to take, Zaleski dos Santos might be a live dog. Okay, he's plus 145. He's 10-3-1 in the UFC. I just feel like he only really loses to top guys. I will say he did lose to Muslim Salikov, and Randy Brown beat Muslim Salikov. You want to do a little MMA math there? I don't know. But I kind of feel like he's a live dog. But I think the best bet here is probably Randy Brown by decision, plus 175. 4 of his last 5 wins were by decision, and he's 12-5 in the UFC. He's not bad at all. The over 2.5, I also think, is a solid parlay piece. That's minus 165, and only because 43% of their combined fights have gone the distance. Zaleski dos Santos especially loves to go the distance. Next fight of the night, we got Jailton Almeida taking on Alexander Romanov. Almeida, he's 6-1 in the UFC. He did just lose to Curtis Blades back in March, got knocked out there. Alexander Romanov started off hot, then lost to won his last one. He's 6-2 in the UFC. Did just beat Blagoy Ivanov last summer. This one's risky, but I'm taking the over 1.5 here. It's minus 130. Okay, I'm parlaying it with the first fight, Randy Brown, Zaleski dos Santos, over 1.5. That gets us to plus 134, which I like the value on that, but the over 1.5 here makes me nervous. Mostly because Jailton Almeida in 7 UFC fights has only hit the over 1.5 twice. He did go 5 rounds with Derek Lewis, which I feel like you got to factor in there. Like, I mean, those rounds counted, I know it was 1 fight, but I don't know. I feel like that increases the odds here. Romanov is really why I took this bet, because he's hit the over 1.5 in 5 of 8 UFC fights, and 2 of his last 3 have gone the distance. So I feel like he's starting to slow it down. So the pace, maybe Almeida, gasses a little bit. We'll see. You got to hope. This one's risky. I'm not going to lie. But how about this? You looking for anything else? Fight to end by KO, plus 215. Most of their wins are by sub. 12 of Almeida's 20 have come by sub, and 9 of Romanov's 17 have come by sub. But neither of them have been sub before. So I'm thinking maybe, that shit negates, and then one of them gets knocked out. Both of them have been knocked out before, and 38% of their combined fights end by KO. Again, fight and KO plus 215 in a heavyweight fight. I feel like you got to jump on that. Same thing. Romanov as a dog. I don't think he's going to win, but plus 220. It's heavyweight. Anyone can win. And probably your safest bet is Jailton Almeida by finish. It's minus 110. So obviously add it to a parlay, but 19 of his 20 wins have come by finish. So next fight, we got Kevin Holland taking on Michael Oleksiejczuk. So, this fight's at 185. That's important because Holland's last 8 fights have not been at 185. They should have all been at welterweight, but he did have that one fight to Hamzat. That was a 180 catch weight. So we'll say 7 of his last 8 fights have been at 170. He's 4-3 at welterweight, 4-4 if you count the Hamzat fight at 180. But at 185 in the UFC, he's 8-4 with 1 no contest. Not bad at all. Oleksiejczuk, on the other hand, though, kind of the opposite. Former 205er. He has been at 185 now for his last 5 fights. At 205, he was 4-3 with 1 no contest, and he's 3-2 since moving down to 185. So kind of roughly the same record. Holland has lost 2 in a row. Granted, it was to fucking Michael Venom Page and Jack Della Maddalena. Michael Ogzechuk has lost 2 of his last 3, but it was Kyle Bohalio and Michelle Pineda. I'm so short on breath. I took like 10 bong hits before this. Sorry. So yeah, I'm taking Kevin Holland here. I like it for bounce back win for him. I feel like there's plenty of ways for him to get it done. Oleg Zaechuk was just finished less than 3 months ago, and 2 of his last 3 fights he's been finished. If you're looking for anything else to take, I think Holland by sub plus 275 is the move. Oleg Zaechuk's been sub 5 times, and 4 of his last 5 losses were by sub, and 2 of Holland's last 3 wins came by sub. I feel like at plus 275, you got to hop all over that. And as a parlay piece, the over 1.5, it's minus 165. 50% of their combined 34 UFC fights have hit the over 1.5. So it just seems like a solid piece to add something. Co-main event, we got Sean Strickland taking on Paulo Costa. Strickland, as everyone knows, coming off the title loss to DDP. He did win 3 in a row before that, including dethroning Izzy and winning the title in a shocker. No one saw that coming, I gotta say. Paulo Costa, he's lost 3 of his last 4. The lone win was to Luke Rockhold, who didn't look that great towards the end of his UFC run. But Paulo's only fought 6 times in the last 7 years. I know he's been booked a bunch between that, pulls out all this shit. But he's really not that active. What's crazy is Sean Strickland has fought 13 times in the last 7 years, and that includes taking 2 years off when he got into that motorcycle accident. So, like, he's fought twice as much as Paulo in, 5 years as Paulo has in 7. Wild. For this fight, though, I'm taking the over 2.5. It's a minus 160. I'm parlaying it with Kevin Holland money line. Gets us to plus 133. I like the value on that. Reason I'm taking the over 2.5 is because 4 of Strickland's last 5 went the distance. Noted all 5 rounders. This fight is 5 rounds. And Paulo Costa, 4 of his last 5 went the distance. One of those was a 5 rounder, but still, we just need the 2.5 here. That's only half the fight. I'll take it all day. If you guys are looking for anything else to take, I think Strickland by decision is probably your best bet. It's plus 215. 6 of the 7 5-rounders he's had in the UFC have gone the distance. Again, this fight is 5 rounds, meaning all the fights he's headlined, but this isn't a headliner, but it happens to be a 5-rounder. The over 4.5, I also like because maybe Paulo can squeak out a decision. I don't know. Plus 120. Same reasons I just mentioned. Sean Strickland and Costa, both 4 of their last 5 have gone the distance. And Paulo Costa is a dog. If you want to hop on that, dude, he's plus 195. He's got a puncher's chance. I don't know. Main event, Islam Makhachev taking on Dustin Poirier. All right. I know everyone thinks Dustin's going to win this fairy tale fight and jump the gilly and all that. I don't see it happening, dude. I think Islam probably finishes him. I'm hoping a little later, though. This is now Islam's 3rd title defense. He has won 13 fights in a row, which is crazy. Poirier has won 3 of 5. He's obviously coming off that upset win over Benoit Saint Denis in March. And that was kind of a war. It only went 1.5 rounds. I know because I had the over 1.5 and it just hit. But dude, that was like not that long ago, and he took a beating in that fight. I don't know, makes me nervous there. I'm taking though the over 2.5. It's plus money. It's plus 165. It's our only single of the day. Islam, 6 of his 15 UFC fights have hit the over 2.5, and Poirier, 10 of his 30 UFC fights have hit the over 2.5. It is worth noting, though, that both title shots Dustin had against Charles Oliveira and Khabib Nurmagomedov both made it to round 3. So I'd like to think when the belt's on the line, he, lets it go a little longer. I'm not counting the BMF title fight because that's not a real title because that only went to round 2. If you guys are looking for anything else to take, this is probably the best bet on the table. Islam by sub. 11 of his 25 wins are by sub, including 6 of his 15 UFC fights. And Dustin's been sub 3 times, including the 2 fights I just mentioned, Charles Oliveira and Khabib Nurmagomedov, both title fights. So if you want to go with history, Dustin gets subbed in title fights. And as I mentioned, I know everyone's rooting for it. I'm rooting for it too. I just don't think it's going to happen. Poirier money line. He's sitting at plus 455 right now. It's his last chance. He has a puncher's chance to win. Prudential Center's on Lafayette Street. It could be a fairy tale. I don't know.
I'm worth 100,000 like Woodrow. When a ball call me Wilson, going overboard at the Hilton.